Here we go. It is time for another sprint zone. This one's for 2/6/2024, and everybody's looking pretty good. See Rick there, fading back in the ancient Peloton kit, very relaxed. Looking rearward, we got John. We see Eric in the construction-looking vest, etc., etc. Looking forward, Mr. Highland in the red. We got Scott, Elisa. Looks like Eric, Ian, and Greg up front leading this train as we head down towards Prospect, where the melee is in fact to begin. I would like to thank at this time Scott and John for their telemetry, and Scott also for his GoPro footage. I've omitted my power for this one because my power meter was not calibrated and it was off by like 50 watts, and that was pretty much useless. Kind of annoying while I was actually riding too. At least when I was up front, wondering why it didn't look like I was putting anything out, but I was suffering. Anyway, so we got Scott and John 30-second up top. Scott and John's instantaneous, or what actually is like 3-second power, probably at the rear, at the lower portion, along with their respective speeds. So we've got on the very far left Scott's RPM in mile per hour, and then John's to the right, his RPM and mile per hour, along with their heart rates. And it's go time. Heading into this one, looks like Eric is up front looking to get the party started, but not really in earnest attacking or anything. Looks like Rob back there taking a drink. You got Ian there in his yellow. We got Eric once again, as I mentioned, in his construction uniform. Isla fading back, and Ian coming up, and there's Elisa looking strong, looking to see if any others are going to come around, and it looks like she knows that she has to own my wheel, which actually isn't a bad wheel to be on, if I must say. Looking at Scott's footage, up in the upper right, he's got Steve in his sights, and Steve is up front now, has taken over the position from Eric, and keeping everybody honest. Danny comes up from the rear, looking not to be caught behind, because there's nothing worse than the strong men, the heads of state, going forward, and you are caught backwards with a gap to close. And if the big men were there, that is not going to happen. And we don't have a lot of supers today, only JC. So he could have sat back with JC. If there was any action, JC would have pulled him up, but it's better to be closer. Here's a good shot of Steve from Scott's camera. This is when my camera makes its old switch from file to file, and I want to keep the power accurate with the video, so we insert that there. Once again, back to the main footage, and looking at the 30-second power from John and Scott, low 200s, which is pretty good. Not crazy, but it is definitely keeping people honest, especially since like JC is not even up front, so you know we're beginning to work. Elisa looking very strong there, and I am looking for her to do well this year, not only in the sprint zones, but in the real world of racing. I think her first race is going to be the Boulder Roubaix, and we're looking for good results there as she is riding super strong. Up front, we got Eric and Scott, and I've been getting on Scott in some of these videos about not doing any work, sitting in, riding coattails for the entire 8 minutes or so, and then sprinting around in the end, which, you know, it is a good tactic. He's learned that tactic, he's good at it, and now it's time to contribute to the suffering, contribute to making the selection, whittling down those who would not even be there to sprint. And it's good to see he's taking that to heart. And he's coming back here, he's like smiling, and this is what he's telling me. He's like, yeah, I heard what you said, so I'm looking forward to seeing what you're seeing this year. Elisa looking good, Danny looking good, everybody strung out, and no real selection at this point. Eric up front looking extremely strong, and he is super smooth. Look at how solid his upper body is. Super strong core there as he's just mashing out the power. And you know that if Scott is back there pushing over 200 watts, you know what Eric must be pushing up front. A good look at Scott's camera up on the right where he is faded back. There was not that much respect given to him, so he was not able to slot in, or perhaps he chose to slot in behind JC because JC would in fact be the marked man, and that is indeed a good tactic, to be on the wheel of your rivals. Eric's still looking really good up front, and I am not feeling where he's going to pull off and I have to go do some work. So I'm enjoying this the way it is, but it'll be all too soon where I have to take over and expend some wattage. So the speed was like 24 miles an hour or so, and I'm going to drop it. I'm not going to do that. So I immediately slow up a little bit to 22 miles an hour, and we're going to see what's happening. Because I am not going to go that hard. Well, for two reasons. One, I can't do that. And two, let's have some others come closer to the pointy end of the stick to do some work. Elisa looking for like a lot of camera time as she is glued to my wheel. And here we go. Steve Hyland walking off the front, and there is no reaction from the peanut gallery. Either they don't give him enough respect or they're expecting the people up front to run this down. And I have no intention of running this down. We're going to let somebody else do the work. And I don't have Cat 5 fever. Cat 5 fever is like where everybody chases down everything. And I like to see people taking a flyer because if in fact they're that strong, it is good to soften themselves up when they're up there because you don't want to bring strongmen to the line. And if strongmen are trying to pull out other strongmen, it is an act of gamesmanship here. And speaking of gamesmanship, I think JC has had enough of this. He's saying, come on, let's jump on the train. Scott's there, and it looks like Eric is there. Elisa quick to jump off my wheel. Danny riding coattails as I slot in there, looking to get myself some shelter. And that was kind of good. So that meant I did not have to accelerate that hard to get on. The train came by, gave me a little bit of shelter, and I just kind of slotted in, and it looks like people are being brought back. Looking at Ian there, looking at Greg there, and you can see that their vests are cupping a lot of wind. Those little wrinkles there, if you can imagine how much square footage or square inches that is, that's a lot of drag there. And I am certain that they probably haven't noticed that, but when springtime comes and they remove all that, they'll feel much lighter and be riding stronger. Anyway, Ian looking good. Coming up there, looks like he wants Danny's wheel, but I am not about to have that. Looks like there's a big hole that was pointed out here. Everybody moves over, and I'm going to slot back up here and get next to Danny. Ian kind of riding out in the wind there, feeling good. And you can see that up front, there's a slight echelon right to left. And it would behoove somebody to actually stay behind. So Ian comes up right next to me. I'm like, it's like, is he trying to fight me for this wheel? I'm not having it. If he was a bit stronger and I knew he wasn't going to gap me off later, I'd been like, yeah, you really want that wheel? You can have it. I get a little bit better of a draft, but getting gapped off, not good. Slots back, he does, and he's still out there in the wind a little bit. Greg has a much better position, riding slightly, to the left and getting some draft there. Mr. Lamar is just sitting out in the wind. And that's the thing, like when you are really strong, you don't have to be smart. You can sit out in the wind. So if you're looking to work out, yeah, that's good. But if you're looking to save energy, increase your efficiency, hone your cycling skills, you want to fall in line. Because when you follow people that are kind of like on their own beat, you don't know if you should be following them or not because you don't know what's going to happen. Looking up front again, it looks like Scott doing more work. Clearly, he's trying to earn some extra credit here as working before the final sprint, and we'll see how that unfolds. Danny following wheels very well. Ian, at least behind Danny. Elisa looking super strong. JC boxed in, and this would have been a good tactic to box JC in. Steve gets to go, and JC has to work to catch them, but that is not, in fact, what unfolds here. It would have been good if, like, there was a plan and Elisa stayed on Eric's wheel and boxed JC in for a little bit. But tactics, if you're not on a team, why do that? Scott coming back, getting a little rest. Oh, and there's a nice pat on the back from JC to Steve, congratulating him on his hard work. And I like to see that. People acknowledging those who are making it hard, who are making it happen. Rearward, people just hanging on. Greg has that nice new bike, nice Aero helmet. And it looks like we're starting to have a selection where Ian is unable to maintain contact and a further selection is made. Looking at Scott's camera, or he's right behind Danny, and Danny's kind of moving around a little bit, kind of up and scooting, and Scott's going to be aware that he might need to go around at any point because he's a little bit far back, and JC and Steve are up front. Eric coming up the right-hand side. I always find this, yeah, it's okay. For like a bigger echelon, I would do that. But he's pushing a lot of wind to stay in contact. And here we go. Danny climbs up the hill. Scott makes his move, throwing out some big wattage. Danny kind of hesitates and like maybe he was giving some room for Elisa to go in and follow that. But now JC goes hard. 800 plus watts. Impressive. As he is going hard out of the saddle, looking to make things hard. And look at the 30-second power from Scott and John. Well over 600. And that is most impressive as the final selection has been made. And you can see that JC looks back and has gapped Scott off. A well-earned win up that 2% grade. And you can see just a little bit of that has caused the rest of the group to implode. And I am content to sit on Elisa's wheel behind Steve. If there was money on the line, I'd be like, yeah, I could probably edge out Elisa for, 18th spot and get an extra, spot on the podium, get my GC status up there, but it really wasn't worth it. But that was fun. That was good. Well done, Elisa. We're looking for you to do good things. It's going to be a wonderful summer, and it's good to see developing talent like that joining the group and keeping people honest. Steve relaxing there, looking strong, of course, as we recover on this section. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. That was fun. Until next time, peace out, and a good time was had by all.